Good night and welcome to Mindful Live 536. I believe we are on right now. I'm Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is currently a late, super late start. So, we're back with some of our same old ways. Fresh in the new year. We gotta go earlier. But alas, we're here. And it's brand new geopolitics in this brand new year. The whole geopolitical situation seems to be a bit on its head from what many people are accustomed to. It seems to be a bit on its head. Welcome. Thank you, Tony the Ambassador. Thank you. And it's a brand new situation. The order that stood since World War II, I think, is being slightly disrupted. And really and truly, when you think about it, the change of the name from the Department of Defense back to the Department of War under the present U.S. administration should have been a signal. It should have been a signal. Because really and truly, that whole Department of Defense and Ministry of Defense business, that was something that really started post-World War. That was something after the disasters of the World War. After the disasters of the World War, and people were like, hey, this whole warring thing seems like a bad idea. It just was bad for your image to have a ministry, a department, a section, a secretary of war in charge of this thing called war. That was unheard of since World War II. And now President Trump brought it back. And for me, I don't really have a problem with it in the sense that I think it kind of always was the case. And this is just a bit more of an honest view of the way the world operates. The world always operated with those that had more marbles, could have made more calls in the game. That was kind of always how the thing ran. It's just that there was a bit more secrecy around that kind of behavior, but now they're doing it quite plainly, and in a sense you wonder, if I was an American, wouldn't this be how I would want my country to run? Good night, Dalip Jairam. Wouldn't I want my country to run seeking my best interests as a citizen of that country? And isn't that basically what they're doing? The Monroe Doctrine of old of the United States, presently being called the Dunroe Doctrine. I presume they might land more around the Trump Doctrine, because Dunroe Doctrine just doesn't sound very reasonable. But who knows? But the idea there is that no foreign actor should be able to make moves inside of the Western Hemisphere. In the United States backyard, no one should be able to make moves. No, not at the expense of what's right, Nikitha says. Well, the problem there, Nikitha, is who is to say what's right? Is your version of right what is right? Who says what is right? If, on my part, this man or this country is seeking the best interests of my adversaries, is it wrong to make sure that that doesn't occur? What do you mean at the expense of what's right? Who decides that right business there? On whose orders of right are we going on? I keep hearing the United Nations says that this is against international law. Another person says international. What international law are these people speaking about? Who wrote this international law? Who voted for the people that wrote this international law? And who is responsible for making sure that people hold to this international law? Who is the law enforcement of the international law? What international law are people speaking about? How is there any kind of law where there aren't enforcers to the law? And if the enforcers to international law are the United States, they are the only people capable of really enforcing any kind of international law, then they are the international law. Are they not? Who are you going to call to stop the United States? You don't like what they're doing, you say it's against the international law. Who gonna stop them? Some of the funniest stuff I could think about in geopolitics is the United Nations meeting with the Somalian president as the chairman of that meeting to condemn the United States action inside of an American building inside of New York, the same state and city where they are holding Maduro. It's time for all nations to drop the so-called rules-based order and just go full gun ho. I think it kind of always was that, Sword. I think it always was that yo-yo zero effect. I saw someone saying in a reply, so is it now that the Palestinians could go inside of Israel and kidnap Netanyahu? And I'm like, if they could have, they would have. If they could have, they would have. The US have the Western world in a chokehold? No, the US has the entire globe in a chokehold. And if it's not the US has the globe in a chokehold, it's going to be another major power. If the US doesn't have Venezuela in a chokehold, it was China who had Venezuela in a chokehold, or Russia. It's someone gonna have you in a chokehold. But what law does the United States uphold? They uphold the law that they see fit. They conveniently choose which laws they uphold. Almost all of the international charters and legal frameworks and all of that, nearly none of them the United States is signed on onto as an agreed member of those agreements. Nearly none of them the United States is a signatory. They aren't under the rules and order of any of those rules and orders. They are the rules and orders. And I find it ridiculous to attempt to pretend like that's not the way the world has always worked. That is the way the world has always worked. It's like when I look at people complaining about, for example, the embargoes against Venezuela and Cuba and all of that, and how could the US do it? It's so unkind, it's so wicked. You know what an embargo is? An embargo is basically the US says, we're not going to trade with you. They're punishing you by just not being your friend. They don't have to be. Sword says it's a good thing I'm not a head of state because they would have kidnapped me for sure. Nikita says literally doing whatever they like with no consequences. They can't do Russia or China that. Well, yes and no. They're not doing what they like with no consequences because that's not true. They have consequences and they have elections to face internally inside the United States. And according to what Mr. Trump does, he does have to face his electorate with that. So it's not without consequences. And they can do China and Russia that to some extent, and they do China and Russia that to some extent. That's what those Cold Wars are about all around the world. That's what has been happening. Now, China has been moving serious pieces around on the global stage, and they have been using the rules-based order against the rules-based followers. So Chinese companies have been suing US and Western manufacturers and corporations inside of Western courts and winning based on that rules-based order. But you cannot sue Chinese companies inside of China based on that rules-based order. It's fighting with one hand behind your back because it's only the Western countries that were supposed to function based on that rules-based order. And if you're trying to make deals that you have to follow rules to, but the person you're making the deals with don't have to follow those rules, you would always have a handicap. You need to explain what is a Cold War. Something gets a war fought in the snow. A Cold War just means it's not a hot war as in the direct two combatants aren't kinetic fighting each other. They aren't bullets directly flying against each other. But many times they fight proxy wars, which may be exactly what Ukraine is. Listen, Trump word a direct threat to sovereignty, especially in the Americas, are our leader's death. What is sovereignty in the Americas? What do you mean by sovereignty? What's the definition of sovereignty? The ability to chart your own course? What is sovereignty? How do you define sovereignty? And in that sense, according to which definition you use, which of the Latin American countries were sovereign or are sovereign? Which of the Latin American countries actually have the supreme power over their own country? Which of them ever had it? None. None of the Caribbean countries either. Exactly, the US funds and aids all countries in the Americas. They do. So, it's a nature of the world kind of situation. I think people born in the 80s and 90s, millennials and Gen Xers, some of us, we have a skewed bubbled view of the world from the peace times of the 90s, where the American media beamed it all into us that everything is perfect and we have come to the end of history and everything is going to work out well from here. USAID sword is no more, but that doesn't mean that the US doesn't send aid anymore, because the US still sends a lot of aid, but USAID isn't anymore. Time for the arms race to begin. The arms race never ended. That's the point I'm making, Sword. Do you think that China stopped developing arms based on the rules-based order? The only countries that stopped developing arms based on the rules-based order were European weirdos. And the European weirdos were able to do that because they were banking on the fact that the American gun nuts would always be there to protect them. Now, with Trump talking about he wants Greenland and the United States needs Greenland, all of a sudden Europe has to think, ooh, the United States isn't automatically always on our side. There may be some geopolitical issues where we and the United States may be on opposing sides of this matter. And then what? Not with KPB. We have a Capleton mentality. Bun the Queen, the Pope, bun the US, bun. Zero effect, I like it. You're right. And it kind of annoys me. The de facto edgy Trinidad taking too much liberal media content, anti-American, shoot from the hip quip annoys me no end. Especially when I see it on places like X, formerly Twitter. Because I know the vast majority of the most fiercely anti-American people in Trinidad and Tobago are in fact the most Americanized people inside Trinidad and Tobago. Most of the people that are most fiercely anti-American, it's because they took in too much American media in their growing up. They grew up on American media, and the American media taught them to view everything in that Americanized view. So now they are anti-American as if they are an American socialist or communist. Weird group of people. Very weird. People whose entire life and social circle depends on Americanized pop culture and living, and then criticize it at the same time. Weird group of people. But Trump isn't conservative or liberal, he's a businessman first. That's actually true. Trump is a pragmatist, and that's what I think many people like about Trump. And that's what I think Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar may be underestimating or incorrectly estimating, in my view, in how she deals with this. Because Trump is a pragmatist. The guy considers himself the art of the deal man. He knows how to make the deals. The opposition leader in Venezuela is donating her Nobel Peace Prize to Trump. While Trump is saying that she doesn't have the power and the, 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 and the the clout in Venezuela. Wouldn't it be something if the Trump administration turns around and works well with Delcy as the next leader? Listen, they make it seem and speak about the whole dictatorial stuff and dictator and elections and democracy and stuff. But the United States works with dictators all around the world. The United States works with dictators all around the world. Normally. Normal thing. So it's not strange, and it wouldn't be strange if they work along with Delcy. And I don't know. I'm curious. I wonder, how is the personal relationship between KPB and Delcy? If I recall correctly, I feel like there have been some spicy words passing between them. If you were United States is a dictatorship itself, let's not use words without meaning sword. I don't like that. Like, let's use words with their true meaning. It's not a dictatorship. But yeah, what if our stance was depending on a full regime change out there in Venezuela and expecting that a totally US friendly regime that comes in after would be very amiable to work with? And if that doesn't happen, they make a deal and they work with the next in line and the US is fine, but Trinidad isn't mentioned in the moving forward. What's that? Because when Tanti Delcy first touched down, she started talking as the I go to say the young people, but it's not really a young people talk anymore. The older gentle people speak. She was talking real greasy. Tanti Delcy touched down with a full greasy badman tone. Where have America taken over and it was fine after? I mean, fine is such a hard word to use when you're looking at geopolitics. But is Grenada a basket case? Is Japan a basket case? Is South Korea a basket case? Was West Germany a basket case? Like, sometimes people speak without actually the full knowledge of what they're speaking on. Yeah, sometimes people speak without the full knowledge of what they're speaking on. Regime change has always occurred all around the world. Regime change has been the way many empires have done what they have done. Puppet leaders have been installed all around the world since time immemorial. Everyone wasn't a failure. And the idea that some of the regime changes occurred and led to less favorable situations isn't necessarily a statement meaning that they should never happen. It's like the idea that revolutions never work. Never is too strong of a word, because the American Revolution, some would say that worked very well. Now, the idea that many revolutions lead to crazy insanity and lots of blood is true. So if you're doing a revolution, you better know what you're doing. But the idea that all revolutions fail just isn't true. And if someone is attempting to revolutionize their country and they have an aim for it, I'm not going to say all revolutions fail, so that's the reason you shouldn't do it. No, because there have been a few that worked. He was called a black extremist by the US and considered unfriendly. Well, the guy did have communist sympathies, and a major part of what that Monroe and Dunroe doctrine and the Cold War Part 1 and what it seems like this Cold War Part 2 might be had to do with communism versus capitalism. a lot of that was what the war and the aggression was about. A battle of two main ideologies on the economic landscape. Communism, the belief that the workers, which actually generally ends up meaning the government, should own the means of production, while capitalism means individuals, private citizens, can own those means of production. And that battle has been playing out all over the world. Now, in the case of Venezuela, that battle played out inside of Venezuela, where capitalists were there first, many capitalists, a lot of them foreign and American, and there was serious wealth inequality in Venezuela, with their system coming straight out of the Spanish colonial system. So there was serious inequality, significant, even though Venezuela was very wealthy. And under Mr. Chavez, Comrade Chavez, they changed that. They went from being on the US side of the capitalist Cold War battle to going on the red team, as it were, and going on that communist side of that battle. Now, the US doctrine in the height of the Cold War basically was that there should be none of that activity in the Western Hemisphere. And it seems like they're going back to that doctrine. We don't want communists around us or as our neighbors. Why can't all sing Kumbaya and get along? Because there are resources, and everyone doesn't want to share the resources in the same way. So we would never all get along and sing Kumbaya. Like, a lesson in that is Haiti to me. There isn't some massive grand estate, beautiful and rich, that you win by leading Haiti. De facto, it's not like that. Haiti is in a struggling position. Yet there are millions, maybe thousands of people willing to fight and die for their piece of power on that piece of dirt in the Caribbean Sea. That blood-soaked bit of dirt in the Caribbean Sea. There are still thousands of people willing to die and kill for a smidgen of power on that blood-soaked dot of dirt. Any government that doesn't arm their nation in this day and age is foolish and deserves to be toppled. You know, the irony with that is there's only one nation that actually does that. There's only one nation that actually does that. And the reason is obvious. Maduro would not have armed every single Venezuelan, because if he did that, those arms may quickly turn at him. Like, even right now, I'm very curious to see if our government in Trinidad and Tobago is going to go ahead with this allowing more arms inside of the private population thing. I think they're going to backtrack on that, because presently this UNC government is doing the wine in your face move. They're whining in the faces of their citizens, and whining in the face of your citizens and arming them with lethal weapons aren't generally a good combination. Those aren't a combination that go well together, generally speaking. You don't give the citizenry arms and then whine in the face. Which former British colony arms their citizens? The United States. Exactly, it's the only country. It's literally the only country that does it, because it's dangerous to do as a country. As a country, you arm your population, you're giving them the ability to topple you. That's what you're doing. For sure, no left-wing dictator in the world is going to do that. In fact, Chavez took the guns from the Venezuelans. Venezuela had more liberal gun rights, and Chavez took the guns from the Venezuelans in the 2000s. Of course he did. Of course he did. Why? Because he didn't want them to get revolutionarily minded against him. So, yes, arming your population does give you a significant boost in self-defense. But it also makes your population have much more of a strong say in how the country is run. And everyone doesn't want their entire country to have a say in how the country is run. That's not something that everyone wants. So I don't think you're going to even get that. You're not going to get countries just arming their population. But it is an announcement of a new direction in geopolitics. There was a warning in the news recently where they're telling Caribbean leaders, watch out for Trump. Careful what you say. It's a new game afoot. And this one, the player is using the power and moves that they have. Listen, Trinidad pressure cooker about to explode, so they won't be arming you guys. Of course, they're not arming a person in Trinidad in that sense. Listen, if you're giving people $19,000 tickets, you don't want to give those people arms and ammunition. So why mostly Trump supporters are armed? Because they are the ones who see the importance of it. The right wing are generally more individualists. Individualists are the people who see that they are the ones who need to take matters into their own hands and make sure that things happen in their favor. So they are the ones who would be more into arming themselves, etc. Thus, the right wing is generally the more armed faction in politics. But yeah, you don't give people $10,000, $19,000 tickets and then give them arms and ammunition. Not a good idea. Not a good idea. Something that I remember seeing under the last administration, and this administration is attempting to test that. I said that Trinidad and Tobago is difficult to get revolutionary because people are generally wealthy and comfortable. People are generally wealthy and comfortable in Trinidad and Tobago. And it's hard to get comfortable, wealthy people to go out in the street and get uncomfortable for revolution. That's hard. You don't generally get that happening. The revolutionaries you get in a wealthy country are the children of the rich people who want to pretend to understand the struggle. Almost all of the super left-wing weirdos out there have rich parents. They are the ones that you see on the street dressed like vagrants protesting for every issue. But in real revolutions, not those rich people children, real revolutions, for that to happen, it needs to reach a certain level of discomfort. Listen, if you give our corrupt, ticket-thirsty police the ability to throw out $10,000 tickets on a day and go around giving a significant portion of our country $10,000 and up tickets to pay to the government, you are going to increase the amount of desperate people you have in the country. I don't buy that necessarily, Sword. I don't buy that. It's a matter of desperation. You increase the desperation, you're increasing the risk. They could arm every adult Trinidadian with a gun and it still won't have any revolt, Willie Beng says. A revolt, you see, a revolt isn't necessarily a fully organized coup where we all decide we're marching on the... No, that's not necessarily a revolt. A revolt could be as easy as the place becomes ungovernable. You can't enter certain communities. The government no longer has a say in certain communities. So I don't buy that. I don't buy that. If you give every adult Trinidadian a weapon, I think the nature of politics in the country will change. The nature of the politics would indeed change. Yeah, Delcy started off very greasy, but then President Trump gave her a warning and she backed down. To me, she seemed to bubble down like Baji and is talking about working with the United States now. Interesting. You know, as Ramshop talkers out there, it's easy to say, cuss the US and stand up on your own. You're a sovereign country. That's easy to say. But when you see the guy before you get hopsed up with high security from his bed at night, it makes what you're willing to do a little more limited. Trinidad has a precedent to explode ever so often. It's in our history. You living in Nanya, little Trinidadians are all mouth. Bear in mind, there were a group of fellas in 1990 that did more than just talk. I can see the government not having access to some areas, but I do not see us all coming. No. I don't see us all coming together because I don't think that's the nature of Trinidad and Tobago. But you'd have different groups all around the place that do come together. Hey, Nisi. What's happening? Good night. Happy New Year to you too. How things? I think they'll realize 50 million US is plenty bolivars. I don't know. I wouldn't say that she was necessarily the one that sold him out, but I don't think 50 million would be her aim necessarily right now. If you're in control of Venezuela, you have access to way more than 50 million US dollars. I don't think that's necessarily the main factor there. I think it's not just the carrot, it's the stick. It's the stick. Listen, if you are a leader of one of these South American countries that has been speaking against the United States for a while, and then you see that these people in 1 hour time came into the most secure area in Venezuela, took the leader and his wife and left. You're brandishing to strengthen your point. No, I'm not brandishing it to strengthen my point. I'm saying that there are some people in Trinidad who would be willing to do more than just talk. And if you arm everybody, you may find out just who those people are. That's what I'm saying. $30 million people with strong military quit Venezuela. 30 million people with strong military quit daydreaming. I don't understand what's that. I don't understand what you mean by that. I was told by some Spanish that Maduro elite guards were Cubans. Yes, they were Cubans. And they died. They were killed. They were killed. Elite Cuban protection. Dead. Delta Force dealt with that. So, who out there feels untouchable? Which world leader you think feels untouchable? Like, I saw some people were saying that what this does is it sets a bad precedent, because what's going to happen now is China and Russia and other malcontent global leaders may look at this and see that now they could go and use military force to get what they want now. And I'm thinking to myself, did those leaders care about that all the time? Do you think the thing holding China back from tackling Taiwan is the world's rules-based order? They're worried what the lawyers in Hungary and Northern Europe are going to say about them, and the articles they're going to write about them in the humanitarian newspapers. You think that's what Xi is worried about? You think the reason Xi isn't just running things exactly the way he wants is because of the rules-based order? He's worried that people will say bad things about him. What? Russia is already currently in Ukraine. They never cared. the reason that large powers around the world don't just do what they want is because of the balance of powers from other large powers. So in other words, the reason that Xi in China isn't doing what Xi in China just wants is because he's worried about what the Americans would do in response. So I actually think that this action from the United States doesn't make it easier for China and those other countries to do whatever they want. I think it actually makes it harder. Because what this action signals is that the strongest military power has someone in charge who is willing to use that strength. Someone who is willing to push the red buttons. So now, if you're China, any move that you make, you have to consider, well, this guy might actually do the thing that he says. When he says he's going to drop the bomb, he isn't talking. He might really drop the bomb. Look at Iran. And it's kind of funny to me because I read a lot of online discussion and stuff, and before these incidents, the people who had a reason to dislike the United States and leaned more towards the global south and the third world groups, they were saying that before the Iran stuff, they were saying that the United States can't touch Iran enough. The United States can't touch Iran enough. If they touch Iran, that is it. They're dead. They know the kind of power that Iran have. But if the US only touch Iran, it's World War III. They touched Iran. Like, seriously touched them. Nothing. They went into Venezuela and pick up their king, the king piece, and walk off the board with him. And people were saying Venezuela, they show you how many rockets Venezuela have. Venezuela has planes, and Venezuela has this, and Venezuela has Russia, and Venezuela has China, and Russia and China will never allow the United States to do what they want in Venezuela. Where Russia and China? Right now, Maduro in chains, sit down in New York. And lots of people were saying this, this wasn't an insignificant group. Lots of people were saying this. China is playing the money game. Yes, they most certainly are playing the money game. And they have to play the money game because I don't think they are yet able to not play that game. Yeah, it's the same prison with Didi, I think Maduro is in right now. Could get some baby oiling tips. So these actions by the United States, while some people say they think it sets a precedent for more action from the global malcontents, I think it's opposite than that. I think anyone right now that wants to make a serious military action anywhere in the world is going to wait till Trump leaves office. This is just my theory. Of course I could be wrong. I could be very, very, very wrong. But this is just my theory. Putin did not invade Ukraine 2016 to 2020. This move means when the Colombian leader is speaking against Trump and Trump sends a warning, which he did, and a threat, which he did, the threat and warning doesn't feel empty anymore. Lots of people are foolish not to know that the US is the world police. Willie Banks says correct, and Israel is their boss. If you know how I hate that talking point, I understand the Muslims because there's religious dispute and it's in their best interest to keep Israel at the front of the conversation. Anybody else talking about that, I find it so stupid. Israel is their boss. What? Like, can't you consider that maybe the US is Israel's boss and Israel is part of the US hegemony? It's part of how they direct power out into the Middle East. So of course their and Israel's intentions line up very often. Duh. What? It's like saying because we do things that Tobago wants, that Tobago is Trinidad's boss. No, we are just in partnership. So we have coordinated aims. Our aims are the same. So of course we do things in line with each other. That doesn't say one is the boss of the other. The US sent more money to Ukraine than to Israel. Like, it annoys me because the people that are so Israel obsessed bring Israel into everything. Everything on earth. Every single word said, every single action made is because of the Jews and Israel. Like, give me a chance. Give me a chance. You see, their relationship is so secretive with respect to a lot of things, it seems. You know what gets me on that, Willie Bang? It's so secretive that half of YouTube speaks about this secretive relationship that nobody speaks about. What? Half of YouTube content seems to speak about a secret that nobody speaks about. How is it a secret that nobody could speak about when half of YouTube speaks about it? Non-stop they speak about it. What are your thoughts on Israel? I don't think Israel was doing a genocide. I think that Israel is fighting war against a by and large group that hate them in that area. You look at the amount of Muslims in the Middle East, and then you see the little speck of Israel, and you understand why they are under the amount of pressure they are under. I think they're fighting a war the way wars are fought, and the idea that there are crimes in war, I find to be an insult to my intelligence. So if you're telling me that there should be no war, grand, I could stand with you for that. But if you are saying that wars should be done, but you should dictate how the wars should be done, I find that to be foolish. And if Gaza doesn't want Israel to sampat them, then don't act up. It's simple. You have a stronger neighbor, act accordingly. Anything that is so secretive, not natural, Nathan, it's spiritual, that's why, okay. And all blatantly pledges destruction to Israel. Well, I understand why they pledge destruction to Israel also. But I'd hope that everyone understands why there would be constant fight there too. Nathan, you can't say that and then condemn IS for war crimes and brutality. Who I condemn for war crimes and brutality? Who I condemn for war crimes and brutality? I don't remember condemning ISIS for war crimes. That doesn't sound like something. No talks about the genesis of said war. What is the genesis of said war? Because we spoke about this before on this platform, and it goes long and in circles. What is the genesis? Is it the Israelis claim that their ancestors were there all along? Is it the claim that these are European colonizers attempting to steal land from the natives in that area? Which genesis are you going with? As far as I can see, there were always some Jewish people in the land. The formation of Israel is about as contorted and disruptive as the formation of most countries are. What does the Genesis have to do with it in that case? I find like people attempt to put Israel into some kind of special category when they look at that situation. I look at it as any other conflict in the world. Can't rate Israel at all. I didn't say you have to rate anybody. You don't have to rate anybody. It's up to you who you rate and why you rate them. But I would see that it's about the way wars have been fought. I don't rate Israel somewhere lower than another country because of that war. Which country would you put in a higher regard than Israel? Would you put any of Israel's neighbors in a higher regard than them? I wouldn't. Is Gaza in a higher regard than Israel? Is Hamas? Is the Palestinian Authority? Is Hezbollah? Is Jordan? Is Lebanon? Is Egypt? Is the Muslim Brotherhood? Is Saudi Arabia? Is Qatar? Are any of those players? Would you put any of those players in a higher moral sphere? It's the statement I regularly say in the live. This good guy versus bad guy, comic book, Cartoon Network, superhero movie idea. It's a childish way of looking at the world. So you see, all right, a bad thing happens. So if a bad thing happens, that means the person who does the bad thing automatically has to be a bad guy, one. And two, the person who gets the bad thing happen to them, they have to be a good guy. Because bad guys only do bad things to good guys. So then that means it's a good guy versus a bad guy. Well, who is saying about good, Willie Bang? I think when it comes to a country, talking about an entire state, to talk about a country and use the word good is a foolish thing to do. You are being an idiot. I wouldn't say Trinidad is a good country by those measures. Like, what measure would you use to say that? The example I regularly like to bring up, Jamaica right now has a group of people inside of their landmass, inside of their country, who want to be free and want to be independent. And the Jamaican government, yes, that little small Caribbean Jamaican government, is currently telling them, no, stay under us as subjects. You do not get your freedom. You do not get your self-determination. Stay righty. So is Jamaica good? Or is Jamaica just a country seeking its own self-interest, as many governments are? So trying to, and that's why I said the Maroons, and they have a leader. There was some significant conflict between them, I think, at the start of COVID, and they made some of their demands. But that's why I say it seems to me like there's some kind of unique and different category that people attempt to rate this Israeli situation in. And I do think it's because of the biblical, spiritual, religious linkages in there. People know that a significant Christian community holds Israel in high regard. So they look at Israel, judging Israel based on that Christian community's view. So when they speak about Israel, really and truly, who they're talking to is American evangelicals, and saying Israel kills babies. So how could you be a Christian evangelical in America and support Israel? That's really where I think a lot of this special categorization comes from. And the reason I say that's an Americanized view is because that's a criticism from the opposing political side in the United States. Why do you care about American evangelicals, whether they are hypocritical or not? How is your global geopolitical view determined by such? Other than you look at too much American liberal media. So you have a position that sits in that perspective. Because other than that, why are you judging Israel whether they're fighting a good war or not? it is oh, what's the name of that place where the genocide was? Next to Congo there, Rwanda. Is Rwanda fighting a good war right now? Is there a good war? Like, I don't believe those people in Israel are the Jews of biblical days. Why couldn't I get? I know it. It always goes down to some conspiratorial something. It's the only reason for someone to have Israel in that kind of view. It's the only reason. It's conspiratorial. And here's the thing that's ridiculous about that view, Willie Beng. And I'd urge you to research it a bit more. Stop watching Candace Owens. Stop listening to the Black Hebrew Israelites. They are both ignoramuses. The Jews in Israel aren't one group of Jews. There are Ethiopian Jews in Israel. There are Mizrahi Jews in Israel. There are Arabian Jews in Israel. There are lots of Jews from the right surrounding area in Israel. It's not just Ashkenazi Jews coming from that German area with the Stein surname. It's not just the Shapiros and the Steins. Of course, you are enjoying her right now, Sword. I know there are many people enjoying her right now who actually don't support her views, but they find what she's doing right now very convenient. So I'm not surprised. I know you would enjoy her right now. I expect nothing less. So that's why I say I could have guessed from the time you tell me about Israel in Venezuela, I could have guessed that you have some closer ties to the conspiratorial beliefs surrounding Israel and the Jews. I could have guessed it. Because it's the only reason, really. It's the only reason I found. If you look at this based on normal geopolitics, then it's just, okay, another issue around the world. And that's why I always say, so like Sword, I understand Sword's view. I do not find Sword to be illogical in what he's saying here. I do not find it to be contrarian. It makes sense. He is the Sword of Allah. So of course the Sword of Allah is not for the Israelites. Is that a shock? That's not a shock. I don't find that offensive or shocking. It's very understandable. So if you are not though in that category, why is this such a bother to you? Which other global conflicts do you analyze with closeness to see who is the good guy and who is the bad guy? Are there other global conflicts you do that with? Like, when people are talking about the genocide, in Gaza, I remember since then, a year ago, 2 years ago, Sword, if you were here, you would remember, I regularly brought it up, and now it has come to the fore with the United States doing strikes based on it. The genocide of Christians in Nigeria. How are you concerned about the genocide in Gaza if you're so worried about children and innocents dying? And the genocide of Christians in Nigeria isn't a blip on your map. I mean, if you're a Muslim, as I said, again, makes sense. It makes sense why that is so. You have a vested interest in your group. Makes sense. In-group bias. Makes sense. But if you're just someone who is a genocide warrior, you're concerned about genocide all over the world. Okay. Are you really? Or is it a talking point from media that you bought into? Analyze it yourself. Because there are innocent people dying all over the world. There are massacres happening every day. There are evil people in every corner of the world. So, what's it at? That's my view on the Israel issue. That's my view on the Israel issue. That's my view on so many of the wars. Like when people try to get me to say like the US is wrong in this thing in Venezuela. Listen, when Chavez nationalized the assets of the American oil producers, that's theft in a certain realm. You got these companies to come in there and invest money and boost up your oil infrastructure. You couldn't do it yourself. They had to do it for you. When they did it, you turn around and say, well, it's mine now, get out. Okay. Back then, you had the power to do that. Now, someone is in power willing to use their power to do it back to you. As the old people say, thief from thief is make God laugh. How am I supposed to get in there and say who is morally right and who is morally wrong? If you're there, if you want me to talk about morality, I'll tell you thou shalt not kill. Great. I could stand on moral statements and moral perspectives if morality is what we're looking at. But if you're trying to get into geopolitics and political machinations and attempt to make me put my moral weight behind one or the other, you got to come better than that. Because none of these have the moral high ground. Maduro has the moral high ground. Have any of you spoken to any of the Venezuelans in Trinidad? Speak to them. Ask them about life in Venezuela. Ask them about life under Maduro and let them tell you. So who am I supposed to hold as the morally up or the morally down one? But Nathan, was Chavez's demand for a larger profit share unethical or immoral? I wouldn't say immoral. You could ask for something and that isn't necessarily immoral, but it's up to the people to agree. That's the nature of how the thing works. If you have a piece of land that your great-grandnenen leave for you, and you have not a cent, and you come and sign an agreement with me for me to come and build an apartment complex on your land, and in the contract I tell you, you have nothing, your land is worth nothing, it's an expense to you. I could build my apartment complex on any piece of land anyway. What's in it for me to come by you? So you say, well, you hear what? We split in the profits, 80-20. You get 80, I get 20. Because all I have is the land, you could put this anywhere else. You have the resources and the know-how, so I'm giving you the lion's share, 80-20. All right, I come, I input, I put on the building. 20 years down the road, you could ask me, Nathan, I find that 80-20 a little harder, boy. You feel we could change that? But if we signed a contract for 50 years of 80-20, I could tell you, no, we have 30 more years of this agreement remaining. And if you tell me, I don't care about the 30 more years, I take in my land, give off my land, then you're wrong. I agree, oil companies are needed, but they are vultures, and how do you deal with vultures? Here's the thing. I think the people who use the oil company are actually the vultures. I find it offensive. To ask people to come in and spend their money and then be upset at how much money they make back. If you find all oil companies are vultures, well then, brother, go and weld up the well for yourself. Go and bring in all the piping. Go and bring in all the metal lines. Go and bring in all of the pumps. Go and bring in all of the drills, all of the specialty equipment. Train your own people and do it all yourself. If they are vultures, do it yourself. But if these vultures are the only birds that know how to fly up there and get this special fruit at the top of the tree that you like, you can't be upset that the vultures want a pound of flesh to give you that fruit. If you don't want to give the vultures their pound of flesh, then go pick the fruit for your damn self. Sword, the country knows how much they are going to get. If Guyana didn't like the profit share with ExxonMobil, they could have said, Exxon, we don't want you here. Don't go and explore for no oil. And they would have never found the oil, and Guyana would have still been using the budget that is 10% of their current budget, and they'd have still been the small brother of the Caribbean with Trinidadians insulting them right through. They could have done that until Exxon go to hell with all your vulturish self. But if you have something in the ground that you can't get out, well, then you have to pay the people who could get it out what they ask for. Like, I don't understand this. It's beyond me how this is controversial. It's beyond me. Go get your oil yourself or pay the people what they ask. Those are the options. And this is why I like the free market. And this is why other people like communism. Because communism should be, or is supposed to be, that the oil company is supposed to pay the money to do it, and we are supposed to be able to just take it just so. I don't agree with that kind of thinking. I think if you want something, you go do it yourself, or you pay somebody else what they ask to do it. If I want to paint my house, I could go buy the paint myself, buy a roller and a brush myself, and paint my house myself. What I find unreasonable is to call a professional painter, sign a contract and agree with his price, and when he done paint my house, I find the price too wicked. He priced too wicked. How? The price was known at the start of the contract. If I didn't like the price then, tell the painter bye-bye and I will paint it myself. But no, you know that you don't have the ability to paint it yourself. That's why I say the people who use the oil company are actually the vultures. Because what happens is they are licorice and their eyes are long. The eye get long. They start off with nothing. And when I have nothing, 10% of a billion sounds like heaven. Because I had nothing. But now I get the 10% of a billion, and all of a sudden I start to watch the 90% of a billion, and I'm like, oh my goodness, look how much that is. But I had nothing. I just gained that 10%. I had none. Is your long eye that bothering you? That's what bothering you. Your long eye. You don't have to sign those contracts. You could leave your oil in the ground. You could go slowly and develop the oil industry under a state company. Do that. See if that works. It just baffles me. It just baffles me. And I don't like it. I don't like it because I don't like the principle behind it. I don't like that licorice, greedy principle that is sitting right beneath the communism and socialism and left-wing style of thinking. It's a covetous, to use a biblical term. You're coveting, you're looking at what really and truly what is bothering you is not your needs, whether they're met. What is bothering you is how much the other person has in relation to you. That's what bothers you. It's not about how much you have in totality, because you have more than you ever had. What bothers you is the comparison. And in that case, you're licorice. Your eye long. And then, how am I supposed to put my moral view in the camp of the greedy licorice politicians? I can't do that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying here that the American side is the morally upstanding side. I'm saying don't try to put my morality inside of that. Venezuela was in the oil industry for over 70 years before Chavez became president. Yes, and there were contracts nonetheless that he went against. Anyway, people, this was the first one. Hey, you know, I didn't actually check YouTube to see if anybody was talking over on the tubes. Let's see if there's anyone over there. With US development, exactly. With US development, and without US development, it wouldn't have been there. Anybody was talking over me? Without US development, it wouldn't have been there. Blessed night to Flame on, Deadman Pesh. Always a pleasure, sir. Thank you, artists in training. Appreciated, appreciated, appreciated. All right, people. That's all I have for now. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. This has been the Mindful Live. I am Nathan Springer, and we're back. I'll see you guys again tomorrow around that 9:30 p.m. time. I really have to get to that time. My manager, my producer, is very adamant about me correcting the timeliness, and it's something that we really must work on in this year. So we will be on a much more timely perspective come tomorrow. Laters, people, it was nice as usual. It was nice. See you guys tomorrow. Until then, hold it down. Stay good. Stay well. Outside sketchy. Careful with your car. Careful with your car. Them 1,000 tickets. I think that's evil. I personally think that's evil. That's an evil thing to do to someone. That's wickedness. Anyway, I out. Laters, people. Bye.